Our speakers.
What are you voting for, We're ready. Preferably those, like, let's do these two tables up here.
Now let's grab a seat because we're trying to do this live stream, and so we're a little time
David Michelle. So I met.
Oh, I do have one more. No, I don't.
No, it's fine. We'll just, I'll,
Just
I'll
go
as
do
soon
it.
as it's juiced up,
I
then
just-
I'll,
Trying to.
yeah. I know.
You ready, Elton?
Good.
So feel free to grab a little more food. I know you're doing that already. And we'll give it about 1 more minute, and then we'll pull us together for our conversation.
Present from
Yeah?
behind.
What's that?
Where do you plan to stand? Right there. And I gotta move this big time. I thought you were back here.
No, I think right here is good, eh, Elton? Can we stand?
It's totally live too.
I'm one of those people who's like a stalker who like never.
How's that?
Stand over here.
So people can see the. I don't know if that's actually gonna change.
Carson, what if you stood over here? 'Cause
Elton, you're better on that side because you're not backlit by the window.
It's just a nicer side of your face.
there's no wrong side of my face. Put it that way.
That's better.
Okay.
Trip over it, and then this is beside you, just so you don't trip on it.
Let me know when you're ready to go back there.
We are live in 3, 2, 1.
So just so you folks know, we are attempting to live stream this. That's what that little
You're on action.
action? Okay. Well, let me officially, again, welcome everybody here. We are in Mississauga, Ontario at Behta Darya Church, and really delighted to have this opportunity. And I also want to in particular welcome some brothers and sisters from the Atlantic provinces, particularly the Maritimes. And I think we have some people represented in Parry Sound, some of our First Nation ministry folks. And so we're glad to have this opportunity and conversation to include just a few more people. This has been a tour that Elton and myself and a couple others of us have been traveling across this amazing province over the last, whatever it is now, 72 hours or maybe a little bit longer. And just an opportunity to dialogue with the churches is ultimately what this is about. So we don't want to get super formal about being on live stream. We're just going to kind of get more informal here. But I did want to just mention for any of you that are actually connecting in, if you can self-identify, if you're comfortable doing that, just send an email to Christy. That would be Klee, Klee at ONMB.org. And that would also allow, if you have any questions, we could entertain those questions as we move forward here this afternoon as well. So if you can just let us know that you're there, that would be great. Klee at ONMB.org, and then we can actually make it a bit more interactive. So I'm going to introduce Elton. He's become a great friend of mine. For about 8 years, Elton was doing what I'm doing in Ontario, and so we've overlapped now for the past 6 years of ministry together, which has been great. Elton is an incredibly gifted strategic thinker and leader, and so as all kinds of developments have been happening, which he's going to mention in terms of the national and some of the leadership changes that have been going on, Elton's kind of been at the forefront of that, providing quite a bit of insight and leadership there. And so when it came to actually who might be the best person positioned to direct the national and work alongside myself and other conference ministers and other agency leaders, it really became quite evident that Elton was probably positioned by the Lord for this. And he and his dear wife, Anna, were willing to take the leap of faith, and maybe I'd say particularly Anna, because now Elton finds himself gone from home an awful lot. But anyways, it's a privilege to be working together, and I'm going to turn the first part of the afternoon over to Elton. We're going to chat about this collaborative model deal, and then I'll have some specific Ontario-related pieces that we'll dive into just at the back end of our time together. So, thanks, Elton. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon to all of you who are able to make it and those that are watching us live. It's a privilege. I have said that time and time again, but it is a privilege. It is a privilege to see how God has called people across this country to be faithful to Him in ministry in specific locations and contexts. So every time we go to one of these meetings, meet somebody else who God has called and empowered and able to see what God is doing across our country. Specifically to this day, we want to hear your voice, the voice of the church, those that are involved in the church, as we move forward into a new day of conference. To hear your voice of what needs to be part of our DNA, what kind of conference we need to be, and what are the services that we as a conference should be helping to provide for local churches, so churches can be more equipped or better equipped to do the ministry that God has called them to. So, I want to talk a little bit about this new way of doing conference called a collaborative model. How many of you guys have heard about a collaborative model? Not too many. Just those involved in some conversations have heard about the collaborative model. What is a collaborative model? Well, the collaborative model, if I can say it, is that this family of churches is well resourced. There are a number of very good pieces to this family of churches that are doing quite well, doing the work that God has provided to them. And as we ramp up ministries, we are finding that somehow we are bypassing each other. And sometimes we are bumping into each other as we do ministry. There is a need for better coordination. How do we offer the services to our churches, and how do we speak with one voice? How do we listen first to the Lord together and then speak with one voice, saying, hey, this is what we feel God is saying to this family of churches. So the collaborative model is this idea that we are to create a space where all the pieces of conference, so provincial, national, our multiply, which now involves C2C, local church planting, and MB Mission, the international church planting, and the seminary, did I say seminary? Provincial conference, national conference, all of us together at a table, beginning to dream and to say, what would it be like to serve the mission that God has given the local church, and how can we do that? This is not a new conversation. This conversation has been going on for a while. Somewhere in September 2016, a group of about 50 people from across the country were called to a meeting by the Canadian Conference, and in there we realized that there was some disconnect that was happening. Many good things. God was doing many good things, but there was a disconnect that was happening between the different pieces of this family of churches. Provincial conferences and national conferences, they were not relating to each other well. Local churches and national conference were having this disconnect, this distance that was happening. And all different other ministries were kind of disconnect from one another. So out of that, there was a formation of this task force called the One Mission Partnership Task Force that became a praying group that prayed over the conference, that spoke prophetically over the conference and began to say to, here's what we feel. Spiritually, we feel these things need to be broken. And so they wrestled with that in a spiritual realm. At the same time, the conference ministers were meeting. And they were now becoming a more strategic thinkers in the process. What are the systems we need in place to better serve the local church? And we hired the services of Les Stocky, which is a governance guru, who came and did some eye-opening presentations for us. And we sent a general survey to all of our churches. This, out of all of these conversations came what is being known now as the collaborative model. And the collaborative model, as I said, is this ability to all the parts to work together. You know, I've been in these meetings in Ontario, and those of you that have been, coming with me, you heard this story time and time again, so you're going to hear it one more time. But there are two analogies that I use just to kind of symbolize what this collaborative model is. When you have a piano and somebody says, I'm going to play the piano, but they take one finger and they play one note, just a one note. It doesn't make for a nice music, right? So if for the next 5 minutes, somebody's pressing that one note on the piano and just going, dum, 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 doesn't sound very, very nice, right? It doesn't make for a nice, for you to listen to. It's not nice to listen to. And at one point in time, that's what we had in our conferences. We had a bunch of piano players all playing one note. So church planting over here, church planting, church planting, church planting, church planting, right? So, or leadership development over there, or resourcing churches over there, or all of these different things that were happening, but were happening independently. The collaborative model calls the piano player to use all the fingers and say all of these things matter, all of these notes matter, and when you harmonize them, they become music. They become something that actually helps the ministry. That, in essence, is the collaborative model. The collaborative model says to the seminary, you are important because you are leading, raising leaders for the church, but we want you to raise leaders that are missionally inclined, because Multiply is going to take them, and they're going to take them across the world to be missionaries, or they're going to be planting churches. So we need to work together. So together at the table, you begin to dream of what happens for the benefit of the mission that God has called us to. At one point in time in my life, I had a daughter in university, a daughter in high school, and a son in elementary school. And as I had a great idea. I said, let's have a 2 weeks of family vacation. And everybody was excited. But what you don't realize right off the bat is that everybody is excited about a family vacation in my home from different point of views. I was excited because I wanted to go somewhere where I could go golfing, I could fish, and I could relax. My wife was excited because she wanted to go to museums, she wanted to go sightseeing, and she wanted to do some shopping. My oldest daughter, she wanted to go somewhere where there was live entertainment and the beach. And my kids wanted to go to amusement parks. So we could simply say we're going to have a family vacation and everybody goes their own way, their own thing, but it doesn't really become a family vacation. So what do? Is you invite everybody to the kitchen table and you say, okay, I'm going to give this up so you can have this. And you're going to give that up so this other person can have this. You begin to coordinate all of these efforts, so in essence you can have a cohesive family vacation. Those are the two analogies I would use to explain what the collaborative model is. It's multiple coming together multiple organizations to operate as one, to serve the local church. So one of those. So in a Gathering 2018, with the delegates that the churches have sent to Gathering 2018, you know what Gathering is, right? It's our national convention, and we send delegates and to represent our churches, and so the churches can hear, so the voice of the church is represented. This concept of collaborative model was presented and was approved at 97% with one caveat. The delegates said to us, look, we like the idea, but we need more details. We need more conversation. We need to understand more of how this is going to function. So we moved the motion from implementing to developing, and these meetings, being part of these regional meetings, is part of this developing. It's our need now to hear the voice of the church. One of those tables that is created in this new collaborative model, it's called the National Ministry Team. The National Ministry Team it's a group of people where it's a table where a person like Ed, who is the Executive Director of the Ontario Conference, and the Executive Directors of Conference Ministers of all the provinces across Canada, the president of the seminary, and leaders of Multiply sitting at the table together with myself, representing the national conference. And at that table, we began to ask ourselves, what are some of the things that we feel we are called to be? What are some of the things that we feel God has entrusted us and asked us to do? And so we, in thinking together, we came up with this. And by the way, it's on a paper in front of you. That paper has much more, there are other pieces. That's just a draft. It's called Draft 1. This was just our first thoughts of what we believe God is calling us to, how we are supposed to behave, what are some of the things we should be involved in. That was just that group of people. Now we're bringing these questions to you, the church. But as servers in this in the conference, regardless if it is local, provincial, nationally, or Multiply, or seminary, we felt that we are called to inspire, to equip, and encourage the church for effective ministry and mission in Canada and beyond. Inspire, equip, and encourage the church for effective ministry and mission in Canada and beyond. So, I'm going to ask you this question. When you read this, when you see this, does it feel like it would be a mandate you would give to your conference? Is that something that makes you comfortable? And you could say, hey, we agree with this. This is what the workers of the conference should be about. Does that resonate with you from your local church perspective? So I'll give you about 30 seconds to think about it a little bit, and then I'm going to ask for your opinion.
One question that, do you think that it's not, the churches are not effective, they are not having effective ministry and missions? Do you feel that as a national conference?
No, not at all.
So then why it says that church, they should be more effective, they are less effective?
Well, we have churches at very different stages, right? We have churches that are doing some incredible work and being incredibly effective in their ministry and mission, and there are other churches that need help. And so, as the conference, we want to come alongside the local church and say, hey, where can we help you? So you can be, so if God has put this passion in your heart to reach this neighborhood, how can we come alongside you to see that happen? So that's why it's saying. So we exist to inspire, equip the local church for effective ministry. So there is this sense of church being supported. That's the reason for that. Any other questions or comments on this?
As a national ministry team, is there any teeth to this? In other words, if a church decides to say, we don't want to be part of this, then what?
And so these conversations, the hope is at the end of all of this, when we arrive that this is the final product of a strategic plan for the denomination. Here's the things that we are going to actually ask the churches. Can you sign on the dotted line? Can you agree with us to be part of that? I think for this to be effective, there needs to be ownership at the ground level. Churches need to take ownership of what this is. So this cannot become a document that just happens from the office somewhere. Local pastors and local churches have to say, we agree with this, we agree that this is what needs to happen, and we're in. All right, so in that sense, if we have agreement, then there are things we can measure. So there are things we can come back to a local church and say, hey, can we help you achieve the things that we agree to be about? So,
because I was thinking that part of the teeth would come through the credentialed workers.
yeah.
That to inspire, equip, and encourage the church sounds as it's really good, but then again, how do you move this forward? Unless there's some kind of a statement within why we exist that includes the credentialed worker needing to buy in.
Yeah. this would be part of a larger document, so like you see there will be parts of this document that will say how we behave, the things that unify us. There's a number of other pieces in that document that will call us to agree to certain things. This particular part here is just to say that this is what the conference believes it is its mandate towards the local church.
So how does this relate to what the Ontario conference? So this is being implemented through the provincial conference?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Ontario conference becomes the vehicle by which this comes about. But what it does now is that it brings these other parts of the conference to help the Ontario conference in the delivering of this. Right, so you have multiplying the seminary and the national, and perhaps other provincial conferences that have other resources can now offer those resources to Ed and help Ed in Ontario to make that happen. So what's not going to happen in this new collaborative model is that the national conference is creating these other organizations, these other things in competition to what's happening provincially.
So, so what the Ontario Conference develops in terms of its own particular vision, or some of the things that Ed and the team have worked on. So does this just kind of get assimilated into, or how does that work? Is it just one body who's actually developing the strategy for the entire country, or is there still a particular?
Well, there's contextualization,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
So every place has its own unique pieces. For example, Ontario has a very strong First Nations piece to their strategic plan that does not exist in other parts of the country, right? So they're either in Ontario and Manitoba, I think, right now. That is not part of the strategic plan in other parts of the country. So that kind of context is different here. So we are not eliminating, so Ed is not coming to that meeting and saying, we are just giving up Ontario. Actually, it's different. The provinces take ownership of what happens national. So Ed brings what he does here and what the Ontario Conference is passionate about to that table and says, this is really ramping up. And can we help another conference take on this as well? So it's not eliminating what happens in at the provincial level. It's actually the provincial level bringing what's happening on the ground. I don't know if that explains.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, can we expect that we will, as a local church now, we will have more communication or interaction with people at a national level, or are we still still connecting with kind of our provincial team? Is that?
Yeah, you're still connected. Okay. It is the province that drives this.
Okay.
It happens through the province. So, but you will have, I think, a greater communication with more national people because now we are all operating as one organization. So,
sorry, John, you're still stuck with me.
Yeah. So
I'm just.
Yeah, those are good questions.
Yeah.
So Ed and I, for example, were talking in the car this morning, saying, maybe next year we'll do some visits to some churches, and so now I'm coming alongside with Ed, and there'll be others that will come alongside with Ed to that. And when Ed gets up at a local church and speaks about the ministry that is happening in the country, he speaks on behalf of all of us. Not just the provincial conference, but of the collection of all the provincial conferences, the Multiply, Seminary, myself as a Canadian conference. He speaks with that voice. But the contact, the on-the-ground contact, it is a provincial conference.
So maybe one other thing I just comment to that, as I see it, is I think if this plays out ideally, we're actually talking about a very much scaled back national entity, right? The resources nationally they're actually letting go of a lot of pieces, but the idea is that we prop up and empower the provincial entities to have more resource, more energy behind, whether it's staffing or whatever, to be more effective in the province in which we find ourselves. And so rather than, you know, all kinds of resources going to Winnipeg or other parts and kind of disappearing in sort of our sense, we're working far more tightly together so that we're speaking the same speak, doing the same stuff together, but actually, and even when he'll get into sort of some of the funding, how we want to move this forward. If this works out properly, there should actually be more resource in each of our provinces to be able to give what we're talking about on the ground more effectively than we've been able to do to this point. And it won't be just Elton or others from some national office flying in doing a bunch of stuff. It'll be empowered more on the ground in Ontario or in whatever province we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
Having seen this a couple times now, because I've been at a few of these meetings, I'm just having new thoughts. So I'm just noticing that there isn't the collaboration, like,
Language in there.
in here.
Okay.
And whereas I'm realizing that our big thrust is you're calling us to collaborate in unprecedented ways. And so I'm just surprised now that this is good. This is how we can serve you, kind of flow to you. But really, I'm hearing you say we exist now to call us to collaborate and to be better together and to share better and to arrive at shared objectives together. So I think it might be wise to add some of that language.
And so that is on the second slide that I haven't been presented because this language is not very clear yet, right? But this on this second, so that ministry team wants to facilitate collaborative strategies through provincial conferences and national agencies in our established areas of ministry. So what this is trying to say, not very clear, that's why I haven't, what this is trying to say is right now we have 4 areas that we said we're about. We are about multiplying churches, resourcing ministries, developing leaders, and building community. This is saying that we are going to collaborate in how we utilize or how do we launch those things, but it's going to happen through the provincial conference. And so the collaborative part is in this language over here, but this phrase, because it was just written once and there was no nuancing of this yet, this phrase still is confusing, I think. But that's where it sits.
I appreciate some of the previous comments from the breakfast this morning, just like about our national identity as an Anabaptist denomination, and how we sort of by being together we can strengthen that identity.
Yeah. So unity is, the word unity is one of the words that we had a few times saying it's missing here. Should this ministry team be about creating unity, bringing about unity? Should it be reflected in here, in this? So we're taking notes of all of this, and so we'll go back to these various teams and boards, and your voice in this is being heard. So, a few questions. For the church, for you as a leader in a local church, what do you want your conference to be about? In other words, what would excite you to say, I'm a part of this family because ... This makes me excited. If there are things that makes you get up and say, yeah, I'm all about this. We may be doing that right now. We may not be doing that right now, and we should be doing. What are those things? So it's a question for anybody that wants to answer. So I give you some ideas of what we heard across the country. So we heard a few things. Like, for example, we heard, I want to be part of a denomination that equips the next generation of leaders. So leadership development, the next generation. That's one of the things we heard multiple times in different places. We heard said that we want to be a part of a conference that still believes the church planting is important. So that we heard that multiple times. And we heard we want to be a part of a conference who has a very there is a phrase, I can't remember now, that there needs to be, it's about the centrality of the gospel, that that we have the right balance of theology. That's, people were talking about that. So there were a number of things. What would be one of the things that you say, hey, this excites me? And Eddie's here, I can say, somebody said, I'm excited about a conference that values camps. So we were somewhere, somebody said that. Not in Ontario.
Not yet, not yet.
Well, I would definitely echo, I still look forward to the day where we actually see reproducing, movements of reproducing churches in Canada, and I would love to be a part of seeing that within our conference. And then I said this yesterday in another meeting, but to see what God is doing in two newer fields in Canada, one with people who are coming to Canada from all over the world, the opportunity that gives us, what it means to actually be welcoming, what it means to empower, what it means to be changed as we interact with brothers and sisters particularly, but also those who come with not knowing who Jesus is and are open to that. So that excites me. And then the whole piece of there's a huge wound in Canada around how First Nations have been treated in our history, and I would love to be a part of a family of churches that addresses that and that sees God bring healing. That would be amazing.
What else?
I think something that I am excited about, particularly in the MB context, is that when I think of Jesus' invitation for us to be one, I think there's actually a humility in Mennonite Brethren land that allows other voices, other denominations, other believers to connect together. I don't know, is it a good thing or a bad thing that we're not threatening? I'm not too sure, but I think it's actually quite beautiful that people are welcomed into that space, and I've heard that from a number of pastors. So the potential for partnerships right across the kingdom, I think that's a gift that we bring that I'm excited about seeing grow.
Absolutely.
I think a piece that I'm really passionate about and that just continues to inspire me, I often think about organizational health, and when you're healthy, there's growth and all kinds of pieces that just kind of bubble out of that. And I get really excited. I'd love to be a part of a denomination that is totally bucking the national trend where most church groups are in decline. And we know the challenges in Canada. We know how difficult it is to engage our neighbors and people that are close to us to actually follow after Christ. But to be a part of a movement where God's hand is on it and you're just seeing things happen that are exponential and are totally God-driven, that's the kind of family I long to be a part of, and be a part of building and creating and watching God. And we see pockets of that, and I'm excited because in Ontario I think we are becoming far more healthy and far more dynamic on so many levels, and that's very encouraging.
So I can tell you what I have not heard across the country that it surprises me. I'll be excited to be part of a denomination that prays. Not once has it come up. And, and so I've been waiting for that to come out. I think it's implied that we want to be people that pray and listen to God. But as a value, what comes out of our mouth tends to be what are we thinking about? And that has not come up at all in any place, right? That we are people that pray. And that we listen to the Spirit, and we, in that sense. But I would be excited about a movement. I think a lot of our disagreements, a lot of our things will just fall away if we were just on our knees saying, Jesus, what do you have for us? Jesus, what are you calling us to? Yeah. And this melting of our hearts with God's heart would just kind of break so many chains. And so that's what would excite me. A denomination that say, hey, we're going to pray about this. I think that'll be a beautiful thing. Anything else?
I would just say that, a conference of denomination that learns to listen, I think, to the local context of their churches. There's always a sense of being part of a denomination, which I love because I want to be connected to a family. There's always a sense of there will be a top-down telling of what our church needs to do. And the reality is that we have this diverse local context. And I appreciate that about our local provincial conferences, that I know Ed has come and listened with us to help us together discern what God's doing amongst us. And so I appreciate that. I've appreciated that. I feel like EMBs have been a place of diversity and listening. I think maybe Robin mentioned there is this humility that wants to come and listen along with local churches about what it is God's doing in that local context. Yeah.
So you say ramping that up would be something.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Now, how should we fund the work of the conference? So let me premise this by saying right now, we are asking our congregations to give into two different organizations, a provincial conference and a national conference. Should we move this to a one-stream funding? Should it all come to the provincial conference, and then together the provincial conferences decide what's a national vision and fund that from what they receive locally from churches? Or should we continue in these two streams, have a national, have a provincial? And I don't know if you in the spur of the moment, if you can answer that, but if you can, I'm open to hear. The idea behind the collaborative model is that the provinces take ownership over what happens nationally. So all the resources will flow to the provinces, and then from there, we will look at it and say, hey, beyond Ontario, we also want to reach First Nations across this great nation, or we want to reach into Quebec, or we want to continue to grow the ministries in the Maritimes. And those types of things that need to be part of our national DNA, that the provinces will lean in and say, those things are important, and they will help fund them. So does it make sense for one stream of funding flowing to the province, and from there to national ministries? We'll let you think about that. Ed is going to send an email sometime this week. And on that email, there's a link to my email, so you'll be able to send both Ed and I, your thoughts after you have processed this. Because I know it's hard sometimes after you have good food, sitting down to think about things like money. But if you can send us some information, it would be great. How do you think would be best? Would be cleanest, best, whatever language you want to use for your church to contribute to the work of the conference. And so,
can you help me clarify?
Sure.
What's the difference between that you just described when you go into the province and then working a collaborative model that way, rather than when you go into the national office and having a collaborative? What's the difference?
The difference are relationships. Churches have greater relationship at their provincial level than they do with national. So churches in a majority trust and engage better at provincial level. That's where the relationship is. And they can say, well, because I know Ed and I know what Ed is doing, I am going to send money for the work that Ed is doing in Ontario, instead of saying, that guy Elton, I've never seen him. I don't even know where he is right now. Right? So that relationship is further away at a national level. So it makes sense for it to come through the provincial conference where the relationship exists.
Maybe I would just add one more quick comment related to this, because Elton wouldn't say this himself, but This idea of actually moving to a one stream that would have all the money funneled through the provinces, and then in a sense we decide together how much goes beyond, you need to understand that's at huge risk to the national. Because they presently get a regular stream of funding from our churches. It's never enough, we would say that as well, but there's always a stream that goes in that direction. And so this isn't just sort of well, this would be a cool kind of practical idea. This is a real example in the moment of collaboration and willingness to trust. And back to what I said a little bit earlier about we're hoping that this will also give a little more resource to empower the provinces to be more hands and feet on the ground here. So there's a variety of things at play, but one piece, just so you know, is if we do go down this thing, there is a huge sort of risk or faith step that our national team is taking to make this even happen. And I'm not sure if a couple of years ago we would have even had this kind of conversation. So it's pretty significant. Something we'll need to continue to really process where that's going to go. But I think it's got some huge upsides, and so keep leaning into it.
I think the national is the collection of the provinces and the provincial conferences. That's how we view that. And so for us, it makes sense that the provincial conference needs to be resourced and empowered for the ministry locally, more than having a national entity that competes with the provincial conference.
I too want to applaud you, Elton, for leading this, because as Ed mentioned, like status quo for denominations is top-down leadership, top-down funding, top-down decision-making. And we're very opposite to that, and it's true to our theology as Anabaptists and the community hermeneutic as we study Scripture. We're a gathering of we're really the opposite to that sort of Western model, and to make our funding, putting literally our money where our mouth is, that's a significant step, and I appreciate it.
Okay. The other piece that I wanted to just talk to you a little bit quickly and get your opinion on is right now we say we value 4 very important things. We value planting churches, so multiplying churches, developing leaders, building community, and resourcing ministry. So those are the 5 things we value. What we are asking is, should we include a 5th element that talks about our engagement with the world around us in the area of relief, economic development, social justice, those kinds of things. And here's let me premise with this. What this is not saying is that we do this, but we don't share the gospel. This is, the need to sharing Jesus with people is the responsibility of the church, the call of the church. We are called to introduce Jesus to a world that is broken. So this doesn't say that by doing this, we stop proclaiming. So it's word and deed together. But what has happened in the past is that our churches, in many different ways, are engaging these kinds of things, these kinds of ministries, both locally and internationally. They're involved in making the world a better place. But at the corporate level, we haven't had a language that talks about it. We haven't had anything that says this is a value for us. We really value, as people of God, that we introduce kingdom principles in the world we live in. And the kingdom principles of making, helping relieve poverty, helping the sick and the poor, those kinds of things are important to us. So we're not saying we're doing this, but we're asking the churches, should we have a 5th element in our system of values of what we value and what we do that represents this area of us? Let me also say that we are not saying we're going to create another department, or we're going to create another agency. Churches already have their connections and their places where they're connecting to do this kind of work. We are not interfering with that. This is just a value language. This is value to us, and it should be part of our language. Any comments about that? Yes, no, concerns, grievances?
What's the
what's the reasoning if it's, what is it, you're just adding it as a language, what does that mean? What do you mean by that? It's, so, will the national ministry team not, like, I don't understand, like, why would you add it only as a value and not? So I think MCC would be a part of expression of that, like, it's already happening, right?
It is.
And then you're just kind of giving that, what's already happening language within these ministries.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So right now, we don't even measure this, right? So we don't measure because we haven't looked at this and said, this is an important value at a conference level. So we measure how many church plants, how many leaders we're developing, how we're resourcing churches. We measure these kinds of things. We are not measuring that our churches are involved in these kinds of things that change the world. We and barely telling the stories of what our churches are doing, because it hasn't been at the corporate level, there hasn't been a language for this. So we're just trying to identify, saying, on a ground level, this is happening. Should we not catch up with it?
Right. I think it's great.
Anybody else?
Another way that came and became really evident to us was, it was mentioned earlier that we brought in this consultant, his name was Les, to help us with some of the governance things. And one of the things he did was he did a survey of all of our churches and where the actual funds go. And what was a little bit of a surprise, I think, to almost all of us, was when the statistics all came back. Like, yes, there was money going to all the first 4 pieces, and there was money coming to the national office, etc. But the amount of millions and millions and millions of dollars that were going to relief agencies like MCC, like Compassion, MDS, and all of these things was just off the charts. And it has not been part of anything we've been really self-promoting nationally. We promote MB Mission, the global piece, certainly want churches involved, church planning, all that kind of stuff. But it was just kind of a wake-up call. It's like, regardless of what we're saying or teaching or focusing on, churches are doing it. And so should it not actually maybe be represented in one of our core pieces here, because maybe we're just missing it.
Is it the same as, like, in this line of, on this page here, what we do, you have holistic gospel witness?
Yeah, we tried to go with 2 words in here. That's why the gospel didn't make it in there, but that's we dropped the gospel instead of anything. But that's in that paper. That's what this is.
But I actually like the language here, because I think as much the gospel is about saving individual souls, it's also about the holistic person.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
Bring that guy all the way in the back there. Here's the one who dropped the gospel.
Under the bus.
No, it's good. No, I agree with you. And so as you see in the other page of this document you have, which is a draft, in there is a piece that says, how do we track it? We can actually say how many churches are involved in these kinds of works and where. So we can actually celebrate that. And it doesn't mean that it's just through MCC or just through MDS, or there are churches doing stuff in Africa and other places that they have direct contact with people, and they're doing incredible work of ministry there. So that's it for me. Thank you so very much. It was wonderful to be with you, Ed, across Ontario, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you more and more and get to know more about the churches here in this beautiful province. Thank you.
Thanks. Can we thank Elton? Do you need a stretch break? Are you good? Do you need some dessert? Yes? Sure. Why don't we take 5 minutes? Just promise me you'll come back at 5. Let's just stand, grab some snacks here if you want, the water, and then we'll just do the last part. Yep, thanks. And maybe while everybody's going to get food, I will just mention to those that might be out there in internet land, if you do have any questions, send them our way. Christy, has anything come through?
Not yet.
All right. It's at K-Lee, K-L-E. Okay, let's pull it together for a few more minutes. Just want to give you a bit of an Ontario, a little more specific context, a couple of the things that are developing and upcoming. And again, if you are on the internet wanting to lean in with questions, feel free to do that. Love to have you. So, one of the things that is coming next week in 2 locations, it's not specifically here in Toronto, But in Kitchener on Tuesday and in Niagara on Wednesday is a united effort by Multiply, so both C2C as well as MB Mission. I don't know how many years it'll take us to be able to just say one thing, but
January 1st.
Multiply will be coming together as one voice to share stories, both global as well as local, of God's work church planting wise. And I believe Derek Parento is going to be a part of at least some of these conversations. Randy Friesen is coming. We're really looking forward to those. So we just want you to be aware, if you can make it out to Kitchener, bring some folks, or to Niagara. We'd love to have that, and maybe in the future we can do something here in Toronto as well. So I'll keep throwing it out as things. Everybody in Toronto is going, yes, let's do it. So that's exciting. That's part of our working together. Encouraged by that. I also wanted to give you, as we're nearing the end of this fiscal year, a bit of an update in terms of where we are at in Ontario. I will just give you the kind of overall picture here. When you look at this, it's looking like we still have a bit of work to do and a ways to go to get to our targets. On the good news piece, we've set a budget for our church's giving to be $190,000 this year. Last year was $175,000. We missed it by, I think, $50, $175,000. Which was great. We have actually seen incrementally over the last 4 years a steady increase of giving towards our provincial as well as national efforts. But I just want to encourage those of you, specifically as pastors, shepherding a local church or ministry here in Ontario, that as you know as pastors, kind of the rubber meets the road when it comes to funding and support. And so just like you can't operate well in your church context without the support of your people, neither can we. And if our churches in Ontario were actually doing what we've recommended is a 5% provincial tithe, that number would be somewhere around $700,000. And so we're just not there yet. We're growing towards where we'd like to be. And as we get towards the end of this year, my prayer certainly is that we're going to hit that goal. That will be at least the same as that, if not higher. And all of these all the way down will hit and exceed sort of our budget for this particular year. So as God's blessing you, it's been neat because I get to monitor sort of where churches are at and where ministries are at, what the kind of support level is. There have been some really neat stories of positive leaning in and positive growth, even over the last couple of years. There have been a few other stories as well of less engagement, but we just want to continue to encourage and invite your participation. It's really a real part of being in this together, shoulder to shoulder, supporting each other. So, anybody have any comments about that?
Can I ask a new guy question?
You can, as a new guy.
What's Leaders Collective?
Leaders Collective, Robin. Just look across the table, Robin.
What an
give us.
excellent question.
Go ahead.
It is a one-year leadership development track for young adults in our churches aged 22 to 27. We journey with a cohort each year from September to June in supporting some of their leadership development, both in discipleship and in skill development. So, yeah, we have a number of churches in this room who've sent young adults, and don't worry, I'll be bugging you for a young adult for September's cohort.
But that's them giving of it, right? Giving towards.
Yeah, so far, how has it been funded?
So far, it has been funded by us as a province. What we did this year is we took that line and separated it out of sort of the contribution line. And so we're actually particularly, part of this number and the growing number is we're actually now asking participants to give towards the actual year experience. We started off with no expectations there. And I know there's more money coming in because not all the participants have kind of paid it for this year.
I actually messaged them all today to make sure that they're paying. When I was looking at that, but tuition still doesn't
come anywhere as close.
The cost of running the program. So yeah.
And so what I've actually begun doing is I've been talking to individuals who have a passion for leadership development and inviting their participation financially in making this happen. And so we simply separated the line there, as well as adding an individual line. The other thing you need to know in Ontario, because it's a bit of a bigger historic sketch, not only did we not so much 10 years ago, give significantly more to the province, we also had, as part of our overall total, much more money going towards church planting. And so originally, like even 5 years ago, and we were able to do that because we also had some resource stashed away that we have slowly depleted over these last number of years. But whereas we used to be giving out of this money about $100,000 towards church planting, right now this year it'll only be 20. And so there's some disparity there. There's things that we're just not feeling really good about. And the other thing is, not only is that true, but as we work together collaboratively and as we're actually working across this country, there's probably, I think it's close to $250,000 that comes into the province from other parts of Canada to help with church planting. So there's significant money going towards church planting. It's just our local churches in Ontario are not particularly engaging with the funding of it at this point. And so the more that you would give towards this, the more you would also potentially be giving towards church planting efforts here in Ontario. So there's many different layers to all this stuff, and we would just invite your engagement on that. So I just wanted you to be aware, and we've passed to each of you as pastors a document. We've done this now a couple of years to highlight both some of the stories of what's going on in Ontario, as well as what you specifically in your churches. And so if you get a brochure and it has a gauge of your church's giving, and there is 0 there, that simply means that up until this point in this year, nothing has come through. There may, however, be a number figure there. The thing to be just thinking about is we are encouraging our churches towards a tithing, both 5% provincial, 5% national. That hasn't always been certainly hasn't been our experience, but that's what we're encouraging churches to work towards as the goal.
Just a small clarification, and it kind of goes to Elton's presentation in terms of the single stream of funding. So churches in Ontario and individuals within MB churches in Ontario are quite generous towards church planting. And at the same time, it's kind of like a good news story. Praise God for churches that give. Up until now, it's been directly to C2C or individuals who do that. But at the same time, there's been a diminishing of our ability to celebrate that together and say, look at what we're doing. So it all is happening kind of, it's in a database somewhere that shows these gifts coming in. And to a certain extent, a person like me knows about that. But we're not able to say, wow, like, look at what, there's a tremendous amount of generosity actually from Ontario, but the great thing about a single stream funding approach, if we could get there, would be that we'd be able to say, look at what we're doing together, look at what churches in Niagara are contributing, and it would all be flowing through a single stream, which would be exciting.
Yeah, those numbers would be, I don't know, helpful, or but would be to know that even just, so there's you had your income there, what's coming in. It would be good to know, kind of pie chart or whatever, how it's being dispersed. So you said 20,000 goes to church planting, but then also to see what's come in for church planting from Multiply. So what you're saying is that $250,000 has come into the province from Multiply for new churches. Yeah, it'd be good to see that. So because we don't get the complete picture from that, and if if this conference is a part of this bigger picture, then there's more going on in the province than what that says.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And it's hard.
And MB Mission too would be good to know. Okay, what portion of that goes to MB Mission? Now MB Mission and CC are together, so Multiply.
But even the global local ratios
and
stuff like that. Also.
I know, we have to keep getting the best minds together to figure out how best to present. So that there is the full picture. It's true. And Trevor, you're right. Like I also know, I'm very aware of churches that specifically give towards church planting, C2C, And that's also, I mean, that's a whole other bigger conversation where churches have chosen, like, oh, well, we're all about church planting, but not so much about the conference. That's real too, right? So you've got this interplay, some funny stuff about this family of ours. And so we're also trying to kind of, let's keep talking about that. Let's figure out why some of that is and how do we do this better together.
Let's play a song on the piano.
There you go.
Let's go on a family vacation.
Elton,
He's not even in
he's
the
on
room.
vacation.
Oh, man.
Just a couple other really quick points, just so you're aware. One of the big things that we here in Ontario, myself, Christy certainly helps with this, as well as the Faith and Life team. I guess I mention this simply because it's a celebration of how many leaders keep coming into our denomination, how many are part of the ongoing process of credentialing, but also so that you hear a little bit of, it's a lot of work. Like I was just thinking recently, had a guy that was up in Ottawa, and we spent all the regular amount of time where he did all his preparation, we had the interviews, he did PCO and all that kind of stuff, and then 6 months later he changes, like he quits, does something different. And I'm like, what? We just did all this work to help you get to where you, anyways, that's just kind of a case in point, but there's a lot of moving pieces, and the credentialing process we take very seriously. Those of you who have been through it know it's quite a rigorous process. So I just highlight that. It's a big piece of what we do to try and also help us stay more focused as a family of churches in theology, in practice, etc. And it's not insignificant at all. So that's happening in the moment. There is a pastor credentialing orientation coming in Winnipeg in May. There will be certainly at least a handful, if not up to 10 people from Ontario taking that in. And then I'm hoping that for 2020, we can do what we did a couple years ago, and that is have a pastor credentialing orientation event in Ontario, because it just gave us a lot of momentum. And those of you who have been a part of it, right, you remember, like, it's just such a great experience of capturing the DNA of who we are as this family of churches. And the beauty of that is you get the national scope, and so you hear from, our seminary folks, and you hear from just all of our key leaders. Really, really good experience. So that's just a bit of an update, so you're aware that that is ongoing. We've started this last number of months, pastor cluster option. I mentioned this through emails, a little bit in the Zoom call stuff that I've been doing. If any of you would like to be involved, and actually I have something specific to Toronto. I don't know if any of you that are right here know a guy by the name of Dan Zaleski. Some of you do. He's sort of Scarborough, actually Whitby, end of Toronto. He is part of us. Doesn't come a lot to these events, but he is part of us, and he and I connect on a pretty regular basis. And he would be willing, he's also a trained psychotherapist, I believe, Christian psychotherapist, does a bunch of counseling stuff. Anyways, he and I have been talking, and he would be willing to give leadership to a Toronto-based ministry cluster. So if you're interested in being a part of that, we would love to facilitate that. I think it'd be kind of cool because it would be sort of a multicultural feel group that would bring a variety of different people together. So if some of you would like to be a part of that, talk to me. I'd love to set that up. What we're thinking is it's an opportunity to get to know some other colleagues from different parts of Toronto or Ontario, a safe place to pray together, support each other. You hear about ministry stuff, and you can talk as openly as you feel comfortable, etc. We're not mandating curriculum, agenda. It's a prayer opportunity. It's a relationship building opportunity. Just want to create that space, be that kind of fueling for that. So if you want to talk to me about that, or even just to be a part of a different group, love to, or talk to Christy, we'll get that set up for you. The other thing in relation to that, we have just started, have 2 times now where we've done our Team of Teams conversation, a monthly phone in. If you're not getting the link, please let me know. We can get that to you every Tuesday. So not every Tuesday, I'd love it to be every Tuesday, but once a month, the last Tuesday of the month, we are connecting. And it's been really neat just to hear stories, and that's really what it is. It's a story opportunity, sharing sort of up to the moment kind of stuff that's going on in Ontario. It's 1 hour. You simply click in on your computer. We can get upwards of 100 pictures and people on if it all works well. Love to have you join. We're just starting, and as we have you participate, I'll probably also, tap you on the shoulder and get you to share some of your stories so that it's just really in the moment and for all of us to kind of be hearing and asking questions about what's going on. Just another way to be more part of this family. Any questions related to that or the clusters or comments? All right. One or two last things. Most of you, maybe not everybody, knows Ingrid Reichert. She's been a pastor for us in several different church contexts up in the Kitchener area. She has just been appointed. So with some of the reorganization that we're doing on the national, she has, we've actually developed a new position. And so as the chair of our Board of Faith and Life, which is now going to be called the National Faith and Life Team, she has been appointed. It's a full-time role to work alongside of Elton as our newly appointed. What's that?
NFL director.
Commissioner, specifically, yes. I know,
There's something about these players kneeling all the time. God.
That's a good one, man. I don't know how much Ingrid knows about the NFL, actually, but she's going to be a great appointment, and I'm just excited also for, it's a little bit of Ontario healthy pride to say, hey, we've got somebody of that kind of caliber that is going to be serving in this kind of a role. It's going to be upping, and she's already upping the game in terms of working with her, because she gets things done. It's been really cool. Robin sits on the team with myself. Anybody else? Certainly Elton is on that team. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I will send it with you if I don't forget, when I send this email that Elton has determined that I need to send to everybody by the end of this week. We, as the National Faith and Life Team, and Ingrid in particular, guiding this, are going to be revisiting our Confession of Faith. And so the Confession of Faith, our 18 articles, is a document that was most recently published and finished in '99. It has served us really well. And how many of you have read that like in the last week? I know some of you said, like, historically, yes. I think I can actually put my hand up, but it's actually an amazing document, and I've been kind of in awe at the amount of work that some of our scholars and pastors before us really put into that. It's also a living document. And so we've wrestled as a team, like, what do? Do you someday kind of open it up and revisit all of them and say, to make sure, like, this really makes sense in 2018? Or actually we need to tweak some stuff here? We've decided that the best way forward, because that thought mostly just threw all of us off, and it was like, we can't even begin to imagine the amount of work and effort. We decided, let's take one article, let's every 2 years tackle something together nationally, and then just kind of revisit. Hermeneutically, biblically, culturally, where are we at? Even some of the commentary, and some of the commentary pieces in that certainly need to be updated. They're getting dated, and they're not, anything we're saying is inerrant or perfect by any stretch. So it can be adjusted, shifted, and stuff. But we're going to take the baptism and membership articles, Article 8, and use it as a bit of a case study. Both because practically we have churches that are definitely on the edges of coming up with all kinds of creative ways around membership, baptism, etc. Challenge in their different local, you were saying, John, every context is very unique and specific, that's real. So we're going to take that, and next fall here in Ontario, we're also having our next Equip gathering, which is sort of our theological gathering around a topic. We're going to be going into the discussion of hermeneutics and culture. How do you study the Bible in the cultural context in which you find yourself in? And we're going to use this Article 8 as a bit of a case study. And so we're going to try to bring these things together and explore. At the end of the day, we may say, you know what? We're bang on. We're happy. We're content with what we have. Or we may actually make some shifts. But we're not gonna kind of open the whole can of worms at one time, we're gonna do it kind of article by article. So Ingrid's giving guidance and leadership to that, and I think that's really gonna be helpful. Any comments on that? Questions? Hearing none. Just so you know, our convention is again set for February 22 and 23. If it's not in your calendars, it's going to be in the Glencairn Church in Kitchener. The Friday, where we have now in the last number of years used it as a resource training day, we're bringing in Sarah Maynard, who has a specialty in the Lord's Prayer. And so to Elton's comment about prayer, we want to lean in heavily in terms of really talking about that, praying together, growing together in our passion for prayer. So that's going to kick off the weekend, and then I'll keep you in suspense about the theme for 2019, but it's going to be great. Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hosting, for the great lunch. Michelle and Rafika, we really appreciate it. Your place looks more spectacular every time I come here. You keep tweaking it and adjusting it and adding things, and it's amazing. God's still at work here? Yeah? Yes. Yeah? Awesome. Well, maybe Ed, can I ask you, do you mind wrapping our time up in prayer?
I'd love to.
Oh, okay.
Father, we celebrate what you're doing, and we're reminded of words in the gospel where Jesus tells us that the angels rejoice when a sinner repents and turns to you. And we pray that that would happen today. We pray that our churches would be just full of those kinds of things, of all of us aligning our lives more closely with you and with the work of your Holy Spirit in this world. Pray for the conversation that we've had here. We pray for discernment and wisdom and clarity for Elton and the team as they move forward. But above all else, the name of Jesus would be lifted high, that your kingdom would advance, and that you would be glorified. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And maybe just one last comment, particularly to those online. Like, if you have any suggestions about how we can do this better to serve you, send them to Christy. She'll fix everything next time. No problem. So, thanks so much. Thanks everybody for coming. And God bless. Thanks for all you do in your different, very unique situations.